This is Slasher here at Valve's Dota 2 Championships of the International. Now I'm here with mousesports captain SyndereN. Talk to us about the event so far this weekend and the performance they had. SyndereN, you guys lost kind of early to LGD International. Obviously not what you guys wanted to do this weekend, especially after the long road here, winning the qualifier to get into this tournament. What happened this weekend? What do you think went wrong?
There's been a couple of things. I don't know if I should start going into detail because it might be a little bit of a long story. But we've had a couple of things go against us in the tournament. I think the overall level in the tournament is really, really high as well, so you can't really afford not adapting too well. In a tournament like this that's this long with so many games, it's really about who has the stamina and who can adapt along the way, because the tournament changes halfway through. And it starts out one way and then everyone is used to that, and then something else happens, and if you're good at adapting, you can keep up with the flow, and else you'll drop down. And we had our plan. The way the game is played right now, some of the metagame features counter us pretty hard. We're not good enough at dealing with them right now. So in that sense, we're limited. And if you're limited in a tournament like this, you don't get far.
Now, I actually brought you on my show live on 3 after you won the qualifiers. You seem pretty confident because you had a pretty tough time to go through. You had to win a lot of games for that to happen. Do you think that these difficulties started in the group stage, or was it just when the playoffs came that things started to fall apart?
Our group stage wasn't good. We ended up with a final score of 4-10, which obviously threw us in the lower bracket. I think a few of the teams surprised us with how well they coordinated, how good their team play was, the overall skill of the drafting, and we were, to be honest, we were just behind the whole way, I think. We tried to adapt along the way. Our first attempt at adaptation was wrong. It didn't work out. Then we kind of reinvented ourselves, started playing our stuff, and when we got a good draft, we actually had a good shot against teams like LGD China and DK. We had some good games. We got a draw against LGD. We lost 0-2 to DK, but the games overall were pretty okay because of the way the draft worked. And then when we met LGD International, we were kind of cornered in the draft with what options we had. We had to give something away we really don't want to. And because of that, we kind of got into a really hard game. So I guess you could say we carried over the experience from the group stage into the playoffs, but it wasn't enough. And yeah, when it's a best of one single elimination, when you're in the lower bracket, so that's double elimination, but in an elimination match, then you can't afford to lose a single game, so it's really hard.
These meta changes that you were speaking of, do you think this happened in between the qualifiers and the group stage, or is this between the group stage and the playoffs?
It happened between the qualifier and the group stage. Some of the teams were a bit surprised when they showed up here, like Dignitas. They got completely destroyed in their first 2 games against DK, but they adapted really quickly. And if they had one more win, I think they would have started in the winners bracket. They did really well on day 1. Actually, after they got destroyed, they really pulled themselves together and figured out how to deal with things. So some of the things that happened here that were different from during the qualifiers, I knew. I was not that surprised by some of the meta things, but the whole priority of how the drafting went and how things went down surprised me a bit. And the majority of what heroes are actually really strong in the way people play the game right now, many of them didn't really favor us that well. On top of that, we didn't play as well as we can, as well as I know we can in many of the games. Our communication wasn't ideal until we got a bit further into the tournament, but then we were already at a deficit in games, so it was hard. We tried, and it just wasn't good enough.
Do you believe that the best of 1 format hurt you, or do you think the same results would have happened if it was best of 3 in the losers bracket?
I think overall it would have been the same result. If we would have beaten LGD International in the best of 3, I think the next opponent might have taken us out. I'm not sure. It's always hard to say when it's like hypothetical like that. I would have liked to play another game because I feel like that game we really suffered from our position in the draft and how we like to play. We couldn't really get what we wanted exactly. Or we kind of got what we wanted, but they got what we don't want them to get against us, if you can put it that way. So a game 2 would have been interesting. I think we would have put up a lot better game than in game 1 at the very least. But overall, if you could say that a best of 3 format would have given us 2 wins against LGD International and then 2 wins against the next team, I think it's hard to say. But we should have done better in the group stage. That's how it is.
Now, with a 13th to 16th place finish, you make $0 of the $1.8 million prize pool. 2.8, sorry. So there was some talk going into the event about how Valve should distribute the money. Obviously, they made it all top 8. I spoke to Dignitas and LGD International, and they both thought, well, LGD International thought that it was okay that it was top 8, but Dignitas thought it might have been better to have top 12. Where do you stand? Do you think it was okay the way the prize money is, or would you have rather seen it spread across all the teams?
I actually think the way I'm thinking about it is that this year more than $1 million is contributed by the community. They've put in a lot of money into the prize pool by buying the interactive compendium. And when people contribute to the prize pool, they have different teams that they support. So in a way you could say it's kind of illogical that everyone contributes to a prize pool that only half the players get when they actually support teams that don't get that far. I mean, it's easy for me to say now when we didn't get far, but I actually had the same opinion when we were confident we were going to go far. Before the tournament even started, I was hoping we would get it for top 12 or even top 16. Because I think it's an accomplishment either getting invited because you've been consistent through the year, have a strong roster, stay together, play tournaments, or because you've qualified, which is a hard tournament as well. So in that sense, I feel like that could be rewarded. On the other hand, I could also say, all right, perhaps it's not fair that you get prize money if you don't win a single game in the playoffs, so it's top 12. But the way it is now, I don't feel like the difference is first place whether you win $1 million or 1.4. It's the million and winning. It's the accomplishment of winning. It's the 7 digits. That's the big deal. And I don't feel like they needed to increase the prize pool for first place. That's my personal opinion. I would have rather seen it more evenly distributed. But the good news is at least the second place gets a lot more now. They get half of first place, whereas the last 2 years they only got 1/4. So in that sense, they've evened it out well. But I could have still seen some point in distributing it further down.
We've seen Alliance only lose 1 game this entirety of the International 3. What has made them so special and different than seemingly the rest of the field, including the Chinese teams?
They've always been a really strong team. I'll be the first to admit I'm surprised they're as good as they are. We've generally been a good team against them in the West, and the way it seems right now, we can't keep up with them the way they play right now. It's really amazing. I feel like they've found a niche. I'm not sure if you could call it that, because it's not like they only draft like 5 or 10 heroes. They actually have a decent hero pool. But the niche, which is their play style, is actually really useful the way they play it. They know what they want. They go into every game with confidence, a clear game plan of how they execute things. So it's very hard to catch them off guard because they know what they want and they know what they don't want the enemy to have, and they play around it. And the draft favors them pretty well because they're good with many of the top heroes right now. So they can intimidate their opponent in the draft and make sure they get stuff for their lineup. Their teamfight execution is the best in the tournament, I think. So when they get their good team fights, they don't just win it, they really take advantage. They don't kill 2 or 3 heroes, they kill 4 or 5 and get your tower or get Roshan. And they're good at finding momentum on the map. Sometimes without having too much control, they can still gain it somehow by finding an opening. So overall, they've just mastered playing as a team and coordinating very, very well. And that's what makes the best team in the game.
Now, talking to all the players and, of course, seeing the results so far this weekend, the European teams, and you can put North America in there too if you want to, are on par with China or even have surpassed them. Do you think that this will trickle down from the Alliance and Na'Vi to the rest of the Western teams? And also, do you think that China will bounce back from this and kind of work on the issues that they have at this international?
I think that it could be a multitude of things that have resulted in the way things are right now. But I think it's pretty inevitable that the outcome is the West is really proud that they have already 2 of the top 3 this year, whereas last year we had 1 of them. Actually, we only had 1 top 8.
In the top 8, yeah.
That was Na'Vi on 2nd place, and now Na'Vi or Alliance will be top 2, maybe both of them. If they beat the 3rd place team, we'll see who comes in there. I guess you can say the Western scene has grown a lot in terms of in terms of the scene itself, how many competitive matches we play. There's a lot of tournaments, there's a lot of opportunities to practice and prepare. The East hasn't had as many tournaments. They're more limited in that regard. So they get to practice a lot, but you need to remember when this tournament happens, it's a clash of the West and the East, and we don't really meet that much. We only meet on LAN events. Alliance has been to China, they won a LAN event. Na'Vi has been to China, they won an online tournament. So in that regard, you could say they were already showing that they were strong. They won the last 2 tournaments they were participating in over there. So in a way, it's not really that big of a surprise to me that we're doing as well as we are, because we've been able to see so much improvement, whereas I feel like the Chinese scene hasn't improved that much since last year, where they were dominating completely. And what I'm imagining for the next year is that the Eastern scene will be like, perhaps it's some sort of a wake-up call for them in a sense that, wow, okay, the way the West plays and everything, there's really a lot we can learn, and we need to have more tournaments and more practice, and really going into the international, they're going to have to be better prepared in a way, you could say. But I think the way it is right now, to be fair, Na'Vi and Alliance have shown they're great, but with just a few minor things going another way, it could have been the other way around, because these games are close. It's not just Alliance and Na'Vi destroying everyone. Na'Vi barely 2-1 Tongfu. Alliance, they beat DK 2-1, but perhaps they could have lost one of those games in a way. When Alliance beat LGD, that game, one of the games was really close, so the best Chinese teams put up a fight. It wasn't just easy games, so it's just an exciting tournament where you could say we're ahead by maybe 10%.
Now, talking about the International as that one big event, it seems like this is still the Super Bowl of Dota 2. Sometimes you could say the Super Bowl of esports. But that has made the rest of the year for Dota 2 maybe less so than it is. We've seen Riot and Blizzard have leagues like the WCS and the LCS. What do you think about the International being the one big event of the year? Do you like it the way it is now, or would you rather see some initiative from Valve on creating a year-long tournament structure?
I think what Valve is doing, I like the idea that they have their own tournament where we have the International, which is their event of the year, where they host it, they promote their game, they find the best team in the world. And then the rest of the year, it's up to the community to build it. I think they have the ideology that it's more sustainable. It makes more sense that the community itself fuels its tournaments. Whereas you could say Blizzard and Riot are way more, they're taking a bigger part in running the whole year. And I think what Valve is trying to do, instead of, let's say, trying to control the competitive scene, they will try to reward the competitive scene instead. They're already now working on some models that can, what they're saying right now is basically that we as players create a lot of value, but we don't get the return for the work we do. So they're going to try to work out some systems so that the players get rewarded more for what they do. Instead of running the entire tournaments and paying our salary, then making some sort of interaction in the game so that the community itself gets self-sustained and rewards us for the work we do. Similar to, if you're familiar with how the workshop works in Steam, that you create items, you get a percentage of the items sold as your salary. Item creators in Dota 2 earn 6-digit salaries per year because their items just sell to that many players. So if we get something comparable to that for the players, that's sustainable enough for us, because Steam and Dota 2 in that way kind of runs its own economy. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to do that. If that's successful, I don't see any reason why Valve would need to run multiple tournaments, because we can sustain ourselves and have our own tournaments as long as the game allows us to, and it's a platform for us to earn our money. So in that sense, I'm perfectly fine with the way it is.
Lastly, after each international event, we see a lot of team changes, a lot of lineup switches. You are the captain of mousesports. I know you can't really accurately predict what's going to happen in the future, but do you expect there to be some changes within the organization?
There's within ours, I'm not sure. We haven't talked too much about it yet, what we want to do. Right now we're just finishing off the event, watching everything. It's about what people want. Obviously, you can't really predict what's going to happen afterwards. I've heard there's going to be other teams mixing up, disbanding, splitting up. That's how it always goes after an event like this. So you can't predict what openings people are going to have, and if they're going to be interested in switching teams or whatnot, or transferring, which happens in any sport, to be honest. So I can't say right now. I can say for sure that nothing is set for our team. We don't know what's going to happen yet, but I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen in the future now, because obviously when this event is over, everything calms down a bit, and then we start rebuilding everything again. The whole scene kind of hibernates for 2 weeks or so to have a little bit of a break. But yeah, after that, it's going to be interesting to see. There's definitely going to be something happening, but as far as mousesports go, it's uncertain for now.
Thank you, SyndereN, and good luck for the future, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks.
Stay tuned to GameSpot.com/esports for coverage all weekend long of the International 3.